through fluid electrolyte balance with you and help you work some problems. On Thursday, if you want to go back and review any of this information again, we can certainly do that. And I'd like to spend probably about 30 or 45 minutes on Thursday covering acid-base balance. I know you've had exposure to acid-base in lab, so it's going to be the same material again. So at least it's not like we're doing an entirely different topic that you've never heard of come Thursday. Well, since we're getting close to the end, I thought I'd start talking about dates with you. Next Tuesday is test number 4 on chapters 23, 24, and only the fluid electrolyte information from 25. About a week or so later on April 28th, which is the last day of class, that's exam number 5. That covers just acid-base in chapter 25 and reproduction from chapter 26. Thankfully, even though we had that snow day earlier in the semester, we're going to end up just right. As long as no one breathes too long or hiccups in here, we're just in the information just like we need to. So what that means is Thursday, April the 28th is not only your last day of class, it's your last regular exam of the year. I won't see you the following Tuesday because that's the exam week, but our tests are scheduled for 9:30 in the morning or 12:30 in the afternoon on that Thursday, May the 5th. Honestly, it doesn't matter to me which one you attend. I think I'll have enough seats so some of you decide to switch back and forth. If you decide to come to the 12:30 instead of the 9:30, just let me know. I'd hate to have you standing up for the final exam. So there's probably about 45 seats in here. I've got about 50-some people invited to 11, so I can't have everybody come to the 12:30 class, but there's certainly room if you prefer to come here. Just let me know so I can mentally keep tab of seat numbers. In terms of thinking about the final exam, we are looking at 100 multiple choice question tests. In the past, I've tried giving like 150, 125, and what I found is the scores are no different from those who take 100 question tests. So I thought, why put you through more pain of taking more questions when the grades ultimately turn out to be about the same? Seriously, within a point or two difference for 125 versus 150, multiple choice question tests. Why put you through all the pain and trouble of taking that many more questions when it's really not going to help your grade out on the long run more than probably about a point or two? So there's no essays on this test. There's some pictures, but you might want to go thumb back through your old exams to see what types of pictures were asked on those. Information from lecture is fair game. I do not ask anything from lab, so don't worry about going back to lab models or anything of that sort and studying that material. I would use your exams in here as a study guide. I would go back to test number 1, not memorizing the question, but rather looking at the concept being addressed by that question. I tend to ask the same concept over and over from one test to the next. I may have changed the wording a bit, but if you look at the old exams, I think that's your best study guide. There's also a set of exams on D2L. I've got up there, 2008 or 2010 exams. If you want additional questions to go by, that's a good place to look as well. I can't promise you the exam questions are verbatim the exact same, but the concepts are very similar to what you've had on your hourly test. The final is 20% of your overall lecture average. In terms of your entire course grade, it's 15%. So it's something that can help you out a little bit. It's also something that can unfortunately pull you down as well. If you head into the final exam with about a 77, 78 average, and the exam final is not your best day, that can actually pull your C down to a D. So it's real critical if you're sitting on that borderline, say a 77 or 78, that you really nail that final and keep your C. If you're around an 80 average or higher, you will most likely be able to weather the storm of the final. So even if you score like a 55 or a 60 on the final, just not your day, you can still come out in that 80 average and usually maintain a C for you. So it's something to just not take lightly because it can drop a grade for you. If you're holding on to a B, it can drop you to a C if the final is too low. The other benefit of the final, it can also help you out if you just had a bad day on a typical hourly exam. If you had, say, a 50 on an hourly exam and the rest of your grades were in the 80s, then that final will drop out your lowest exam score and replace it as long as your final exam is higher than that one low exam score. So that does help out some people in terms of their average coming into the semester. But at any rate, it still counts 20%, even if it is your very lowest grade. It can count almost double if it replaces a low test score for you. Average got to be a 76.5 or greater to get you out of here. And then, of course, if you have any questions, I'm not going to hold like a formal review session, but I'm always in my office from 8:15 to 9:15. So ask your staff, and if you want to drop by and just sit in there with your questions, feel free to come on by and you and I can have a personal review session. So instead of having a group session, I'm just going to offer to you my hours. They will continue through final exam week at that time period. So, hey, drop on by. I'll be in there. I don't have any exams during that time of the morning. So I'll be happy to sit with you and do questions. Yeah.
Last semester I know that you let us come by and get our the last test that we took. Can we do that?
Yeah, we'll do the same thing. And what I'll do for you is I'll post answers to the last test on B2L, and then I'll put an envelope here or scan sign in your test paper so you can pick that up. Yeah. That's what we were talking about. As far as I know, he's still got to put up on that date. But, you might ask him if he has any other options, for you. But as far as I know, he doesn't have another date. He said he's looking at having a review period for you, but he hasn't told me what date yet, so as soon as I find out from him, I'll let you know. Do y'all have questions about our upcoming schedule? How about exams? Anything about exams coming up? Just let me know. I do check email religiously over the weekend before an exam, so if you get home and you think about something and you want to ask it by email, I do check D2L email pretty routinely on the weekend. Well, let's see, we were talking about water balance in here. We got into a little bit of electrolyte balance. So why don't I take you back to that information, page 128 and 129 in your course pack. Last Thursday we were talking about water balance, and we mentioned that the water intake roughly should equal the water output of your body. If you typically lose about 1.5 liters of urine a day, that's not all the water that we lose. We actually lose other water through our skin by sweating, through our lungs by breathing, and also through our feces through stool, so by the process of defecation. So we lose typically more than just 1.5 liters of fluid. We actually lose on average about 2.5 liters of fluid if you consider all those other sources of water loss. So to essentially prevent dehydration, we need to take in pretty much what we're losing. So we need to take in about 2.5 liters of fluid a day as well. We talked a little bit about disorders of water balance or water imbalances. So you might notice here's a picture of cerebral edema. In the case of water intoxication or hypotonic hydration, a person may take in too much water. That water acts as a hypotonic solution in the body. What does that do to the cells of the brain?
Bloat.
Bloat or swell those cells. Anytime you put excess fluid that's hypotonic around the cell, that cell's going to take in that fluid in order to reach equilibrium. So you can see here the brain cells swell. Notice the one on the left there, that left hemisphere looks a little more swollen. And you can see that it also crushes the brain because it really fills those ventricles inside. And then you've got excess cerebrospinal fluid on the outside surface of the brain. Too much fluid can actually shut down brain function and kill a person. So it's real critical to not have excess fluid. If it's something you can control through the type of drink that you're taking in. We got a little bit into electrolyte balance as well on Thursday of last week, so I wanted to take you over to that page. That's 129. water balance, it's also electrolyte balance, because in order to keep water in particular compartments of your body, we have to have these electrolytes there that help pull them and create water homeostasis. So in terms of electrolytes, this takes you back to Biotin 10. Electrolytes are ionically bonded compounds that break apart or dissolve in water. When you place an ionic compound in water, it breaks apart into ions. Things like sodium, potassium, chlorine, all these different ions break apart and essentially dissolve in the fluids of our bodies. Cations and anions are both ions, of course. The difference there is the charge that they carry. Cations carry a positive charge, of course, anions with a negative charge. I want to talk to you about the most common types of ions in our body. In the interstitial fluid, where are we currently at?